Hello, fellow investors, and welcome to another episode of Ritter On Real Estate, where we teach you how to passively invest like a pro. Today, my guest is Tom Zeeb. Tom is the founder of Traction Real Estate Mentors, and his business is focused around helping real estate investors, as he eloquently said just before this, find deals and make money. And I said, yeah, why complicate it, right? That's what it's all about. So, Tom, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kent.
Absolutely. And we'll dig into more of that because what we're really going to focus on today, guys, is one of my passionate topics and something that I think is just one of the most important things you can know, not just in real estate, but in life, when you're dealing with others, is negotiation, how to be a good negotiator. And so Tom's going to take us through some tactics today. We'll talk about what it is, how you approach a negotiation when you're in the negotiation, how to do it right. So really excited to dig in, Tom. But before we get there, we're going to start at the top like we always do. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to be where you are today.
Gotcha. Tom Zeeb. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, lived in Washington, D.C. for a good 23, 24 years. And a couple years back, moved down to Sarasota, Florida, just getting a very good lifestyle angle out of it. So negotiated my way down, as the case may be, and it's been good. I primarily, as a real estate investor, focus on wholesaling real estate, mostly residential, a little bit of commercial. And I find that it doesn't matter which exit strategy or what type of asset class I'm after. It always comes down to turning it into a good deal from negotiation. And everything changed for me when I studied negotiation and got good at negotiation and focused on negotiation and what it took to turn things around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I said, you use it in every facet of life, right? Not just in your real estate deals. So, well, let's just start right there. You know, what does it mean to get good at negotiation? Like, what do good negotiators do versus bad negotiators or the rest, everyone else, right?
Yeah, good question. One, I think it starts off by recognizing everything is the negotiation. Whether you realize it or not, or accept it or not, we're all negotiating all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So why not get better at it? We're also all negotiating all the time, and yet, when's the last time you've taken a class in school on negotiation? It doesn't seem to exist. It made radical changes in the amount of deals that I got and the amount of money on each of those deals. And yet there's never any solid class on it. So that's what I like to fix with people, is get them focused in on it, appreciating what they're doing and the immediate impact that it has on you.
Yeah, I love that. So let's, you teach a class on it. Let's start with the curriculum. I mean, where should you start as you're preparing for a negotiation?
Well, interestingly, I always jump ahead slightly with people and get them started with practicing implementing some basic techniques.
Okay.
Because I think when it's like when the switch flips and they realize, oh, wait a minute, this is really, really good for me. This is working well. Okay, I want more. And the moment you give somebody proof of something, they tend to accept it more. So they're moving ahead more. There's also a negotiation lesson in that. Yeah. That's what you're trying to do with the other party that you're talking to is the faster you can get them to accept what's happening and accept the eventual outcome that they need to have, right? Because I view it as a negotiator. I'm not just trying to get them to say yes to me. I mean, yes, I want them to say yes to me, but it's only going to be right when it's also a win for them. So it is a true win-win, which I know some people think is cheesy and corny and doesn't, how could it possibly be win-win? Well, easy. Don't argue about the same thing. If the number one most important thing to me as an investor is getting the price right, then I've got to be dealing with someone who they have a different number one. They're trying to solve a problem. That's why they're a motivated seller. Because if we're both arguing on price, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And that doesn't really work for me. And that's not going to get them to say yes. They're going to stay stuck on no. So you get to the point where solving their problem is the number one thing for them and getting the price right is the number one thing for me. Well, now they can win and I can win.
That makes a ton of sense. So how do you figure out what's important to the other party?
Ah, ask, talk. Just get good at rambling a little bit and even small talk with people. Dare I say it? When I was younger, I never liked small talk with people, but you just start talking, ask them questions about their situation. Most people can talk about themselves pretty darn easy. So if you get in there and why are you selling? How long have you owned this building? How many units are there? When's the last time you fixed it all up? Hey, what's your craziest tenant story that you've had? Or anything to get the ball rolling and just start rambling in the conversation, because the more you get them talking, the more they loosen up. The more you get them talking, the more things that they tell you off the cuff. And all of that is building rapport as the process goes. I mean, just the fact you have a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation with somebody, they know you a lot more now than they know anyone else they've never spoken to. And if that conversation was easy and they kind of enjoyed it, they're going to want to talk to you more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a ton of sense. So what are some of those things that you said you get people started with a couple simple things?
Yeah.
Just for the listeners, what are some things that folks could start to implement? What are some of those easy things?
All right. Super easy, and they cost nothing to do. You just have to understand them. The first one is I always flinch every time I hear a number. So, you're talking to the owner of a multi-unit property. Hey, how much are you asking for it? It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what the number is. I want you to react to that number like you're stunned or shocked or attacked by it. So I don't, you can't say a number. How much are you asking for your property, Kent?
$5 million.
What? Woo, 5 million. No,
Like, I mean, 4.
oh, you mean 4? You're coming down already, and all I did was flinch. So let me guess, how exactly did you feel about that number after I flinched?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a visceral reaction
Yeah.
there. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're wrong. And there was downward pressure. Now, by the way, for everyone listening, we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what building we're talking about or what the real value is. It makes no difference.
Right.
He said 5, I flinched. He dropped immediately to 4. Isn't that interesting? That's like a very common pattern with people. So
Yeah.
when you flinch, ask somebody a price, they say a number, you flinch at it, the same thing starts to happen. And it's amazing how that will start the ball rolling in your direction, which is getting that price down.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other tips?
I generally aim to do something called bracketing. And I got to define that a little bit because the word alone doesn't mean much. A bracket sets a top point and a bottom point. Well, this is based around understanding where do we tend to meet. Now, where do most people tend to meet, Kent?
In the middle would be my guess.
In the middle, right? Come on, it's stereotypical. We know in the middle. Okay, so bracketing means I'm going to engineer where I need the middle to be.
Sure.
So, right? So I look at a deal, I analyze it, I come up with, all right, this is the max I could go. Well, that becomes the middle. So now to engineer that being the middle where we're going to meet, where it feels fair to everybody, I'm going to ask them how much they're after, and however high they are, however much further above the middle, I'm going to come in that same distance below. So I'm bracketing around my target price.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to meet in the middle. What could be more fair than that? Even though I totally manipulated and engineered where the middle needs to be.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. And I mean, most people feel that that's a win in a negotiation, is meeting in the middle. I wouldn't necessarily agree, but I agree that that's usually how people view it.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got
set the middle where it needs to be, because then the other person, even though you don't, you go, nah, I don't, the middle's not always right. The middle feels right to most people. And it's hard to argue that, hey, I was here, you were there, we met in the middle. And so it's powerful like that when you're trying to get to an agreement.
I completely agree. I've used the same technique, and yes, it does work. Absolutely. So we've got the flinch, we've got bracketing. Anything else that you're throwing out right away to help people?
Yeah, I'll give you one more. And these main 3 are like my trifecta that get used on pretty much every negotiation. The third one is so so absurdly simple and a little bit zany, and yet it works. It's to always put out a number at a hyper specific number. So
Mm-hmm.
don't just throw out a round number. So you're at, you said 5, you dropped the 4. Let's say I'm targeting on 3.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to start at 2 million to pull you off the 4,
Right.
because that's just kind of obvious. But I might say, Ken, I can offer you 2.273 million for that property. And
Yeah.
you're going, why is that so specific? Right?
Yeah.
So that's an oddly specific. Well, of course it is, because now it sounds scientifically calculated. It sounds like I really put a lot of time and effort into coming up with that. Because if
Mhm.
you say 4 million, I say 2 million, we're just spitballing back and forth. But you say 4 million, I say, 2.273. Suddenly it's okay. He thought about that. Maybe there must be something to that. And it doesn't mean you're going to jump and accept that, nor do I want you to, because I want you to bring me up that way you feel like you won.
Yeah.
But it gets the ball moving very differently when I come in with a hyper specific number.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, we've got the flinch, love, super easy. You can do that right now. Bracketing, right? You can get good at. And then you've got, just being super specific in your numbers. And I agree. It does seem like, oh, they must be doing something to come up with that. And I agree that technique works very well too. So I love that. Those are 3 tactical things that people can do right away to be better negotiators. I think that's gold right there.
Yep. Use them and watch what happens.
Yeah, very cool, Tom. Thanks for sharing that. So wanted to ask you, I'm sure in all that you've done, you've got to have some good negotiating stories. What's your favorite story? Tell us a story about a negotiation you went through, like good or bad, what happened? Like give us the best one.
Let's see. The best one. Here's one I like. It shows the importance of needing to negotiate something no matter what, even if it doesn't need negotiating. You still need to do it because it locks the other party in. So I had a motivated seller respond to one of my mailings, but my call center missed the call. So it just went to voicemail. The guy left the address of the property and told me how much he wanted for it. Or he didn't tell me. He didn't tell me that yet. He told me the address of the property, so I was able to comp it first and figure out roughly what was worth. Residential property, so comps are purely based on what else is going on in the neighborhood. It was worth about 350 to 360. Okay, great. Let's see what happens. I call him back, and I know that going in because he had left the address. So great. I asked him, how much are you asking for the property? And he said, $80,000. Now, I don't care how much work it needs. If it's $80,000 and it's worth 350, 360, it's a deal.
Absolutely.
But if I jump, he's going to get suspicious. That's just very natural. If someone jumps at your first offer,
Yep.
your first thought is, I wonder how much more I could have gotten.
Right.
Second, what's wrong here? So I know I still need to negotiate no matter what. So I didn't go over the top, but I used a very small bracket and then a specific number. I offered him 71,579, just because I have to negotiate it to lock him in. And then we went back and forth a bit. That wasn't acceptable to him. Surprise, surprise. We settled on $75,000. Now, did I need the extra $5,000 off? No, but I needed him to go through the process of fighting for his price and for him to bring me up. Mm-hmm. That way he feels like he won. So that was really important. And then the point of that was proven a day later. I said, okay, I'm going to send you the contract. This is what we need to do, etc. The next day he calls me. He says, hey, Mr. Zeeb, somebody else I called finally called me back, and they're willing to offer me the full 80. Well, surprise, surprise, I'm shocked. Yeah. Oh, you full 80. Okay. So I said, rather than my initial, there's another negotiation lesson in this. You know, your initial thing, well, I'll go 85, 90, 100, whatever. I've got the room.
Yeah.
But that you feel that pressure, but that's not actually the right way to do it. The right way of doing it is to find out what exactly does he want? What's going to make him happy? So rather than start to throw an extra $5, $10, $20,000 away,
Yeah.
I simply said to him, well, sir, what exactly are you asking me to do? And that makes him tell me so that I don't give away more of my position than I need to. And all he said to me, Ken, was, well, I don't know what it is. I like you better. This other guy, I just don't trust. But I like you and I trust you, Mr. Zeeb. And but can you go back to the full 80? Quote unquote full 80. Well, of course I can. That would be fine. I don't say it right away, but I go, I flinch a little. Ooh, the full 80. I might be able to do that. Let me see what we can do. And then you come back, and of course I went to the full 80. The interesting thing is, someone else right out of the gate gave him exactly what he wanted. And he doesn't trust them and doesn't want to do business with them. He wants to do business with the guy that was playing a little bit of a game with him. Right. Isn't that interesting? Because they need to feel like they've been involved in something.
Yeah, I think you built that relationship with him through that process. And like you said, you made him feel like you were engaging with him, you were winning, you let him feel like he was winning. Feel like, yeah, there's a lot there in psychology to kind of unpack on why that all works. But yeah, I love that, just the story around, negotiating, even when the price was right, but you did it to get him engaged, and then seeing the value in that. You had him locked in, and he walked away feeling like he got the deal that he wanted, versus questioning, oh, I could have got more, right? Or what, maybe I could have got 100, maybe I could have got whatever, which I know, like, we've all done. I've done that when people have accepted my first offer. Say, oh, well, man, I should have gone lower or higher, either way. It's like, so I absolutely understand that feeling. I'm curious about something in that, because you mentioned that the feeling to immediately, well, because the other thing that you did was you didn't counter yourself, right? You didn't immediately say, okay, fine, 85, let's call it a deal, right? Because you didn't need 85. You weren't countering yourself. You found out what he needed and let him come back. But the root of my question really gets to, how do you fight that feeling that compels you? Because I think we've all felt that, to be like, because it's uncomfortable to negotiate, right? To be like, okay, I know we can just get it done, or just offer him the 80 at the beginning. How do you fight that internal compulsion just to want to get that done?
Training. That's it. I told you, like, I still felt the urge to leapfrog over the price and just get this thing done. But I have to lean back on my training and go, that's not the right thing to do. If I do that, he's going to get oddly suspicious. He's going to feel funny about it. It's going to become a runaway trend where he keeps asking for things. So I need to stop this by asking him. But the only way I know that is from training. So if one thing I do with people I coach on negotiation is constantly put them in situations, and even if we're role playing, throw them those curveballs to make sure they're reacting not the way they feel inside, but the way they've been trained for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the ability, I think, to get past that kind of gut initial reaction and fight that uncomfortable feeling. Like one thing that I heard in negotiation a long time ago was, the person that wins in the negotiation is the person that can just deal with the uncomfortableness of it longer. And I think in certain situations, like, that's the truth. It's like, it's even as simple as just silence, right? People don't like silence, but often the one that speaks first loses. You show your cards. And so just being able to remain silent for 30 seconds longer than the other party has proven valuable to me in situations where they've started to bid against themselves because it's so uncomfortable, right?
Comfortable to be quiet.
Yeah.
Particularly if, we're in real estate, when there's a sales angle too, we tend to be talkers, and it's awkward to go, silent for a few seconds. I can't go silent too long on a recording because you never know what would happen.
Yeah, no, I know, but
the
but even
computer will
5 seconds
something.
sitting
Yeah,
here is it,
yeah.
we all start to feel a little awkward.
It's highly awkward. I've got a good story about that. When I was negotiating with a consultant, and there was a point where I wanted to use the silent close on him. So we were going back and forth on price. I wasn't quite there yet. And there was a time where it was, okay, now's the time not to say anything else. I'm going to go quiet. And I went quiet and I waited. And he waited and dug his heels in silence. And so the two of us are sitting at the table, silent. And it's making the other people in the room feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Why did Tom and this guy stop talking? And then I'm thinking, this is fascinating, because how does one break the ice now? Because we're two people that know what we're doing, right? So it's kind of like it's playing chess against somebody that knows what they're doing. It's not like playing against a kid where you're going to roll them over. We both knew what we were doing. Thinking, who's going to break? Who's going to break? He broke the silence, but he did it in a very interesting way. And I'll always give kudos to him for the way he handled it. He goes, "Oh, come on now, Tom. We're both friends. We're not going to give each other the silent treatment." So he made me feel a little awkward and almost guilty for using that technique on him. I thought, a brilliant play.
Yeah, it was like he's playing on that like social faux pas kind of, to change the context
It's
and
awkward.
put him
I
back
said,
in the power.
I said, of course, I said, John, I value our friendship. And then I went back to being quiet.
But how did it come out?
Oh, I got him down in price enough where the time was right, and I hired him. So he won, I won, I got a bit of a discount. I was happy.
Yeah. And I can tell you it does work in everyday situations. I just used a similar technique with my landscaper. We're walking around, he's showing, on the house, okay, I want you to do this and that and that. And he quotes me the price. And I was just like, and I kind of did the flinch a little bit. And I was like, and we just stood there for like a minute and a half. And he was like, well, here's what I could do. I could throw this in and that in and that in and that, and it would just all be the same price. And it was like, okay, that sounds good. So, I mean, it is, these techniques work day-to-day interactions. It's just about being mindful, I think, about the interaction, right? And being able to go against your gut reaction to like, just come to a consensus.
Yes. So I refer to negotiation, there's an art of negotiating. Yes. How you do it in your style, and, do you flinch big? Do you flinch small? Is it just the way you raise your eyebrow? There's an artistry to it, but that's not nearly as important as the science of negotiation. Because like what I'm teaching you is based on the science of the way people respond. It's psychology. People are going to respond a certain way when you flinch. So you play off of that. They're going to say a certain thing in response to what you say. So when you get good at that and you understand the science, you can have the art form come out any way you want, whether you're big and brash or whether you're quiet and meek. You're going to get the same result because it's the science of it that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the big no-nos you see your students do that, or just common folks do in negotiation, right? That the professionals don't?
Oh, let's see. Usually it's in some form of impatience. Like just not out there. They want to jump right to the answer. They want to get the yes or the no rather than put in the time. Apply the techniques, watch what happens, play the game a little bit. I keep calling it a game, and I know that can maybe sound like it's cheapening it a little bit, but it's a game, it's a dance, it's almost a seduction. You're going back and forth with somebody and trying to get them to say yes to you, and enjoy that process, because that's where the great money's made, is from that back and forth. And that's also what's going to lock them into you. So it serves all these functions. It kills a lot of birds with the same stone.
Yeah, there's just I guess it's just being disciplined, right?
Yes.
Disciplined in your approach.
Disciplined to do it.
Yeah, to avoid that impatience. Because, yeah, I mean, I think we keep going back to psychology, but I think that's what it is. It's that that feeling of you want the answer, you want to get it done, you want to move past it, because it is at the end of the day like uncomfortable, right?
Yes,
In that process. And so the person that can last longer in that uncomfort often wins.
that's right. And if you're the one controlling the discomfort, then you're in control anyway. And you're going to win, but who cares? Always let the other side feel like they're the ones that won. That's the ultimate win in a way as well, is that they're thanking you and grateful in the process. And I find that with all my real estate deals, I'm targeting motivated sellers, and it doesn't matter if it's residential or commercial. There's a problem in someone's life, and that's why they've got a push on them to get out of that property.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm the one that puts enough salt in that wound and irritates it enough and gets them thinking about, you know what, I really do need to be out of this, then I've done them a favor. It might be uncomfortable needling somebody about a problem or adding salt to their wound, but I'm actually doing them a favor because I'm getting them to take action that's going to solve their problem and improve their life going forward. So that's a good thing for them. And I would love to be the one responsible for making that happen for them. And I would especially love that when it fixes their life and then I get a great deal.
Yeah. And I think that's a fantastic perspective, because, oftentimes, and I mean, I know I've even dealt with this feeling of like you're selling someone in a negative way, right? And it has this negative connotation, but in reality, that is what we're doing, right? Oftentimes, whether it's an investor who could get a great return from investing in one of our deals, and it's just this idea of you're not selling them and tricking them to get in. It's like you're giving them this opportunity that's really going to make their life better. Or it's in your situation where, yeah, they've got this problem, and they just haven't taken the action to solve it, right? And you can take care of that for them, and they can get paid. But seeing it as solving that problem versus looking at it in a negative connotation, I think is empowering. And I think can help people as they try to get started, right? Whether with those limiting beliefs that are, oh, I'm going to sell them, they're not going to like it, or I'm bothering them, or whatever it is that we make up in our heads, right?
I'm not forcing them to say yes no matter what. I'm not holding a gun to them. It's not Luca Brasi and Godfather. You're going to get a yes. Your brains or your signature is going to be on the contract. That's not what we're doing. We're leading somebody along a process so that they voluntarily say yes because it works for them. If it doesn't work for them, they're going to say no, and that's okay. That no means you've got more work to do, or maybe it won't turn into a deal. But yeah, we're not hurting anybody. We're helping them, but helping them get them to yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom, I think that's a great place to start to wrap things up. You've given us a ton of gold today. I love the tactical information that people can go out and start implementing right away. Before I let you go, though, I'm going to take you through our keys to success round. There's 4 questions I want to ask you. The first one is, if you were going to invest in somebody else's deal, you were writing a check and handing it over, and you could only ask them one question about that deal, what's the one question you would ask them?
One question. I want to switch that up a bit, and I'd rather observe them for one action, if I may. Sure. Let me explain it. So, assuming it's a big enough deal, we probably are going to break bread together at some point, have a meal, and I'm going to keep an eye on what they do when the food arrives. Meaning, do they reach for the salt and start salting it before they've tasted it? Or do they taste it first, decide it needs salt, and then put some salt on? Because that alone can tell me, do they jump to conclusions? How do you know it needs salt? You have to taste it first, but a lot of people throw salt on without thinking. That's probably not the kind of investor that I personally want to be dealing with. I'm not going to invest in them because I think they jump to conclusions without having any real data.
Interesting. I've not heard that one before, but I like it. I'm gonna pay attention. I'm going to dinner tonight. I'm gonna pay attention to who's salting the food.
Yeah, without it.
Without
it's not just
tasting it.
insulting to the chef, but I mean, you're jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. I like it. I like it. That's really unique. All right, Tom, what are you most proud of in your career?
I'm most proud of the lifestyle that I've built for myself, my family, my wife and kids. What real estate investing has done for me has been incredible in terms of the freedom from, the last few years, everyone feels like they're disconnected from their office and they're living this entrepreneurial lifestyle. Like, well, I built that 20 years ago when it was a heck of a lot more difficult because there wasn't easy technology to make it happen. But I did it because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to travel anywhere. I wanted to be able to spend time with my kids. A lot of days, hey, kids come home from school. Hey, let's jump on the jet skis and let's go somewhere and hang out and do things. And I like that, not having a 9 to 5 grind for me. That's something that fit me personally well. And back in the day, that was a hard thing to break away from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be proud of there. I think that's what a lot of us as real estate investors aspire to, right? Is to have that. For me, it wasn't as much about the financial freedom, kind of the buzzword. It was that time freedom that just being financially secure gives you, right? It just gives you the ability to control your time and do things that you want to do and pursue life how you want to pursue it.
They ain't making more time, and I also oddly don't know exactly how much I have, so it's kind of
right.
That's more about, I can make more money, I can't make more time, and I don't want to lose time. So I spend a lot of time with my family doing what I want when I want, and that's that can come across sounding selfish, but if you ask most people what their frustrations are, is that they don't have any time to themselves.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think you've done the work to architect the life you wanted to live.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. What is a book that everybody should read?
I'm going to reach back a few years. I'd read a book called To Be or Not to Be Intimidated. It's by Robert Ringer. And I think it fits very well with our conversation today because it's kind of psychology of business, of negotiation. Everything's a jungle out there, and these jungle creatures are going to eat you unless you learn to defend yourself properly. It's big on mindset and process. I found it to be, if I look back, it was one of the books that really kind of shifted my mindset and made things happen. So To Be or Not to Be Intimidated by Robert Ringer. Awesome book.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And lastly, Tom, what is your number one key to success?
Perseverance and grit.
Yeah.
If everyone's flaking out early, doesn't want to put in the time, being able to forge ahead and do what needs to be done, make the moves need to be made, even when they don't appear to be working right away. Having some blind faith in the process, if this process works, particularly if you've done the process before, and you could just be in a dry spell, but you need to focus and persevere no matter what. Show some internal grit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great answer. And I think it's probably one of the most consistent answers on the show. People that are successful, you got to stay with it. And I love the idea of got to have that faith. Like I often use the phrase, you have faith over fear, because I think that's what separates a lot of people, especially people that are able to be entrepreneurs, is that faith. And you got to keep showing up. Like you said, just keep showing up every day.
No matter what.
No matter what. Love it. So Tom, if people want to learn more about Traction and what you're doing, how can people reach out to you?
2 websites that you go to. You can start off at tomzeeb.com. It's TOM, Z as in zebra, EEB as in boy.com, and tractionrealestatementors.com. Both of them have one has a lot of videos and video trainings, free video trainings on negotiation. The other has a lot of longer form podcasts and good information on negotiation and real estate investing as well.
Excellent. Well, Tom, appreciate you sharing those resources. We'll link all that below in the show notes so folks can click and get a hold of that great content. And with that, thanks for being on the show, providing so much value, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
My pleasure. Thanks, Kent.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of Ritter On Real Estate. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on the content that will make you a better investor. Also, visit KentRitter.com for articles, videos, and tools curated just for passive investors. Until next time, this is Kent Ritter with Ritter On Real Estate. Now go out and invest like a pro.